Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today with Dr. Vincenzo Aliberti, who is an author and public speaker and has a new book out called Mental Health and Wellness, a Toolkit for a Good Life. Thanks, Vince, for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Mario. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I look forward to this conversation.
Well, let's talk about the book. Tell me a little bit about what the book's about.
Sure. One of the things that I always found intriguing is all the different therapies that are in the marketplace, like CBT in particular, cognitive behavioral therapy to help out individuals. And what I did in this book is look at more the fundamentals of CBT, but from a spiritual perspective. So I looked at when I was lost, for example, as a recovering alcoholic, and I've been drinking almost 20 years. I even though I'm a Christian, I tried to get insights from all these other philosophies and what have you. And this book is a compilation of those philosophies / religions, but place things in perspective so that people can take everything in very small little bits, so to speak. I speak about Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, Christianity, of course, Stoicism, which is a wonderful philosophy, among other things. So it's really a compilation of all these various spiritual philosophies and putting a mental health take on it.
So tell me the why behind it, Vince. Why did you write this book?
The main reason is, this is even before COVID. Every conversation, well, practically every conversation that I had with close friends and people that I work with, family members, you name it, people were struggling, whether they were multimillionaires or I've also worked as an executive director of a treatment and recovery facility. Even those individuals that were homeless and everything else in between, I noticed that they were not content with life. And I was thinking, what people define happiness? What is happiness? Is it contentment? The core was, how can someone get peace of mind, which is even what I perceive to be even higher than, let's say, that happiness in that 24-hour period. Why can't we have it 18 hours out of that day or 24 hours out of that day? And that was the impetus for me to really delve into this. And one thing that I realized is that mental health was a major reason, well, people's mental health was a major reason why they weren't happy. It wasn't necessarily the situation they were in, it was their perspective around the situation given their mental health.
Now, do you think, obviously, we've been through a tough period of time here in the last 3 years with the COVID, and and maybe that has accelerated a lot of the mental health issues that we're facing out there. But but beyond that, do you think we're, as a society, we have more mental health problems today than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago or so, or is it just the fact that it's more openly talked about now?
That's actually a very good question. I don't have anything quantitative to back myself up here. However, I do believe, given the informal conversations that I've had with the youth, because I was also an executive director of a youth leadership organization, as I mentioned, a treatment and recovery center, as well as working in the corporate environment for 20 years, that it's much more pronounced, it's brought to the forefront more so now because of, or you mentioned COVID, right? People always struggled in their way. And in the past, at least on my father's day, it's like, okay, buckle up, buttercup, and get stuff done.
Yeah.
That was the way it was done back then, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up in that mentality. And I had no idea that I had mental health concerns. And I had no idea the time that my friends had mental health concerns and my coworkers and so forth. But after, I think it was the curiosity in me, given my background, that asked the question, is there something deeper than just buckle up, buttercup, so to speak, right? And that mental health concern was always there, but now it's much more pronounced simply because, as you mentioned, COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's take a look at sort of the consequences of mental health, Vince. First of all, from a physical standpoint, I think that's what a lot of people may not understand, right? Is that, yeah, it's a mental thing, it's mental health, but there are also domino effects for your physical health. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, absolutely. When, for example, if let's take the example of your job, and you're at work, and people say to you, "Well, you're supposed to separate work from your personal life." Some people are proponent of that, right? That's not necessarily the case. Uh, what happens is that when you're actually at work and you're focusing on doing what needs to be done, you're going to have highs and lows
Hmm.
during the workday. And the thing is, there's a spectrum, right? Let's say that
Hmm.
every one of us is on the spectrum. What I mean by mental health spectrum, depending on what you're presented with at work, you may be able to react quickly and get it done. It won't bother you. Other times, what's going to happen is that, let's say that you're not very good at presenting and you're in a situation where you have to present in front of 15 people in a boardroom. That adds that stress, so to speak. It could be a positive stress, of course, but I'm just using this as an example. What happens is that if you don't respond, if you react rather than respond by having specific tools to deal with your situation, what's going to happen is that performance is going to decline considerably, right? You won't get the outcome that you want from that presentation.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've realized is that people tend to react rather than respond, given the situation that they're placed with. And as a result of that, physically, it takes a toll on them. Not only do they perspire, which could be a natural reaction, you're a little bit nervous, let's say, right? But
Hmm.
what happens is the stress is, you feel it in your shoulders. It's almost like a panic attack coming on. So everyone is different depending on the
Yeah.
situation. The point is, they're reacting rather than responding and really compounding the problem.
Yeah.
So definitely, because first there's the emotion, thought comes from it, and then what happens is physically, with the outcome of that thought. And there are a lot of people in today's society that are not just bombarded with one thing, right? It could be 5, 10 things all at once. And as a result of that, because they're inability to have the tools to deal with the situation, the physical consequence is the outcome of their reaction rather than response.
Yeah. So, and you touched a little bit on this as well, like the consequences in terms of from the workplace and the environment in the workplace. Do you think a lot of businesses are finally getting it and understanding that, the mental health of their employees has an impact on those employees' productivity, then boom, it has an impact on the business, obviously.
Do I believe that? How about this? I believe we're making strides.
Yeah.
I don't believe that all employers really get it. For example, uh, I still believe that the mental health is the elephant in the room, so to speak, right? And there's some certain stigma associated with mental health. Mental
Yeah.
health. Uh, I also believe that from a psychological safety perspective, most people, at least the ones that I've spoken to, are still not comfortable going to, let's say, human resources and voicing their opinion, because the repercussions of that may be that they may get terminated, or maybe in their file, or
Yeah.
some negative consequence associated with their mental health.
Yeah.
So I believe that we've made strides moving forward. Absolutely, Mario. However, the stigma, I believe, is, although it's reduced, it's still there. Um, I believe that the psychological safety is not where it needs to be. And as a result of that, it can make it quite difficult. And you mentioned the productivity. If the mental health of the person is not there, they won't be as productive. They won't perform and won't
Yeah.
be as productive, and it'll impact the company's bottom line, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's not where it needs to be.
Yeah. All righty. All right. The book's called Mental Health and Wellness, a toolkit for a good life. So Vince, where can people get this?
This one is on Amazon.ca. I have the Kindle version. I'm going to get the paperback version all set up. And feel free to email me at drvincealiberti@gmail.com if you have any questions. That's Dr. Vince, Vince Aliberti, Aliberti @gmail.com. And yeah.
Super. Well, thanks very much, Vince, for joining us today.
Oh, my true pleasure, Mario. Always a pleasure, and have a blessed day.
You too. That was Dr. Vincenzo Aliberti, who is an author and public speaker in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today. Hope you enjoyed it.